Perhaps the most important position for the Pacers this summer, power forwards. Who could they sign? Who could they get? It's the exact position their whole team says they need. We'll cover all the free agents today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name is Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today it is the most anticipated free agency positional preview. It's the power forwards, and it's the position that Rick Carlisle said in no uncertain terms that they need the most in his exit interview. Everybody wants a foreman that has length, that can guard multiple positions, that can shoot threes and make plays. That is exactly what the Pacers need. Rick Carlisle is dead on. We're going to cover the free agent landscape at that position today. And joining me to do that, long overdue, an OG of Pacers Twitter, if I do say so myself, from 8.9 seconds and the greatest Pacers site that ever was, the Fieldhouse. It's Ethan Krieger. Ethan, how you doing, man?
Not too bad, man. You?
Hanging in there, you know.
Yeah.
I can't explain this time of year. It's like everybody's busy with stuff that's fun, but everybody's busy, you know. It's like,
for sure,
I can't even explain it. I'm excited to talk about this spot because since Thad Young left a few years ago, it's been sort of a rocky position for the Pacers. Not that they haven't had talent. The Turbonis duo, both good players, certainly. Wara was good this past season. Neesmith, when he was at the four, did some good stuff. Like, they've had fine players playing at power forward, but they either aren't natural fours or it just didn't, they're not that great of a player. They've really needed talent here for about 4-5 years, Ethan, and you can just kind of tell, right, watching the team, how much they need talent at the spot.
For sure. Yeah, because Thad left in the summer of 2019, so it's really been since then since they've had like a true starting four that should actually be playing the four. Because, yeah, I definitely don't count Domas playing the four. He's definitely a natural center. They brought in Smith last season, told him that he'd be the starting four moving forward. And I'm not saying I'm smarter than any front office people or anything like that, but I think everyone could have told you that he was not the answer for the long-term starting four for the Pacers. So yeah, been a big need for 4 or 5 seasons now. So hopefully we can get some actual help this summer for sure.
The Smith idea was, to me, a lot. Well, one, I mean, I'm sure it was partially a negotiating tactic, but also he hit threes in that stint the season before. So I'm guessing the thinking was sort of like, oh, if he shoots, then great, he can play the four, but he couldn't at all. Sure. And so he didn't fit in that spot in the slightest, right? It's fair for me to say the process was fine leading up to trying that, but it didn't work. It just didn't work. So they're back to needing fours. They've said it. Every team needs depth on the wings and at the fours. The thing about this position is too, sometimes in the past it's well, if they draft someone at this spot, they won't need depth as much. They have nothing. Even if they draft Walker or Hendricks, they should still sign a 4, maybe even 2. You can never have enough guys with size, and losing Brissett potentially, and who knows what's going to happen with James Johnson. They have just no depth at these spots. Jordan Wara is their only guy between 6'6" and 6'10" on the whole team. They're going to need bodies at this size, even if they draft somebody. So yeah, we'll talk about the best names, but I'm assuming you agree. They just need as many as they can get.
For sure. Yeah. If you actually look at Basketball Reference, the only 2 listed power forwards are Brissett and James Johnson, who, could both very well go somewhere else this summer. I know. Yeah. They tried to play Neesmith at the foursome last year. He's a little bit small, to actually be doing that. Yeah, definitely just, there's just no one left potentially. So even if they do draft someone, like you said, they still need 2 or 3 guys just to kind of round out everything and make sure that they have some actual depth there this season.
I don't think I'd be picky necessarily. Brissett didn't even have that great of a statistical individual season, but a lot of lineups he was a part of just did well because naturally he could defend that size or just fit on the offensive end and provided some threat with his cutting. But among the key skills the Pacers need, which is a bigger size creator in general, not even a high volume creator, just a little bit, and defense, which is the most needed skill to me, but it's still important.
Yep.
Shooting, every team needs shooting. They were 11th in 3-point percentage last year. If you were looking at all these forwards, is there a thing that you'd say, this is the skill I place the most value on when hunting through the list of forwards?
I think probably defense, just because the Pacers defense last season was absolutely trash. I mean, just couldn't have really been too much worse. So just someone that can kind of slot in and actually play next to Miles and just have a front court that other teams are like scared to face, you know. They really haven't had anyone there since Thad Young that is actually a, you know, stopper on defense. So I'd probably lean defense, shooting for sure too. But I think my top thing that I'd be looking for is probably defense, I'd say.
I agree that defense would be like my biggest tiebreaker, but I was kind of workshopping this before we started talking. Like if I know that the two players I'm choosing between, one of them is a really great shooter but can't defend at all, and the other one can really defend but can't shoot at all, I might take the shooter for the Pacers at the 4. Like, fours who can't shoot at all are really hard to kind of scheme around offensively, and the size alone would help the Pacers on the defensive end. That might be a lazy way of looking at it. And of course, defense, they need all of it. Like, I would not fault them if they just signed the defensive guy who can't do anything on offense. But if it's a one-way player, then yeah, I think I might lean a little bit more towards the offensive guy. But there's a lot of guys in this group that, you know, of the top 10, 15 that can do stuff on both ends, right? So you're not actually choosing. And among those guys, I think choosing the best possible defender should be their goal. I agree with you there.
Yeah. And I know this isn't like a draft show, like we're talking about, you know, guys that they can actually sign this summer, but kind of between Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks, like who do you kind of prefer there? Like, do you think Walker is more of like the defensive guy and like Hendricks is more of like the shooter? I know Hendricks like has, you know, the shot blocking and everything too, but if you had to pick between those two guys for like draft purposes, who are you kind of leaning who are you kind of leaning towards right now?
I'm leaning Jarris among those two myself. I value their defense pretty equally. I think Jarris maybe a little bit more upside there just because he's bulkier, but they're both wonderful defenders. But on the offensive end, it's almost a certainty to me that Hendricks will be the better shooter, but I think Walker has enough skills that there's a chance for him to have upside at it to be a good offensive player that Hendricks doesn't necessarily have, and that's why I lean him right now. That said, both wonderful fits. Like if they picked either one, I'd go, yep, I get it. No problem there. And both would fit very well with what they need at the 4 too. So, but like also like if you get, you know, any of the, I mean, I'd have to, I guess, pick a number here. The top 7 or so available 4s, like I'd start all of them over both Hendricks or Walker. And maybe you'd start both. I don't know. There's, you know, you can never go wrong with this much depth, but you know, even if they pick one of those guys and want to give them a lot of minutes, I'd still maybe look for like a big name talent at the spot.
Yeah, I think Walker is probably a little bit more pro ready than I think Hendricks is right this second. So I do think depending on if they do draft one of those two guys might slightly change like what they're kind of looking for this summer, but you're right. Like they just need people and neither of those guys are going to like be better than any of the top 6 or 7 or so like you said. So yeah, I think the draft can maybe change what they're looking to do, but I don't know if it really should, honestly. They just need a lot of help.
Yeah, the thing too is like if you fall back on the theory I mentioned a lot of you are what you guard, okay, Hendricks and Walker can both hang with 3s. Great. So now you can play both this guy, that hypothetical guy we haven't talked about yet that you signed to play the 4, and your rookie can play the 3. Great. They're all getting the minutes they need. Everything's hunky-dory. And now this hypothetical scenario we've made up where they have 2 new players sounds great. Oh, we're way too ahead of ourselves here, but I do want to talk about the best players available at the 4 spot because Ethan, great news for the Pacers. This is the best position of the free agent market in the year that they happen to need 4s. So
it probably is. Yeah.
Looking through the names, Ethan, the top guys, Spotrac is so kind. They rank guys with a tier all-star starter rotation. I don't necessarily agree with their rankings, but it is helpful for this discussion. They have 3 all-star level names in Draymond Green, Jeremy Grant, and Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know why Draymond Green wouldn't be with the Warriors next year. I don't know why Jeremy Grant wouldn't be with the Blazers, and I don't know why Porzingis wouldn't be with the Wizards. But I think Green and Grant, if they became available, would be wonderful Indiana Pacers players for many reasons of fit. Do you agree with that? Hey guys, short little break here to talk to you about the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, and Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. That's when I got my tickets for the New York Liberty Dallas Wings game last week on the Game Time app. They have exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
I do. I definitely don't think Draymond is going anywhere. If he does turn down that option, he's obviously a little bit old for like what this Pacers team is kind of skewing for right now. But just kind of brings a lot of stuff that like the team needs. Someone that can play defense, someone that can kind of shoot, and just kind of has like that edge. I mean, obviously Draymond is known for just being kind of crazy. I personally think he should get kicked out of every single game that he plays in, but that's a different topic. So I think he fits super well. I don't know if I care a lot about age, just because like you know that you're going to get 2 or 3 more like solid seasons out of him, just with like the style that he plays and everything. So yes, he is older. I still think he helps this Pacers team right now. I don't think the Pacers are contending for like a championship in the next couple of years, but definitely like raises their floor quite a bit, I would say. So I think he'd fit great. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he's going to be an option. Kind of the same thing with Porzingis. I don't love his fit like next to Turner, but there's no way that
he's more of a 5 to me.
Yeah, and he's making 36 like is it 36? Sorry, I'm trying
player
to
option 36 million.
Yeah. I printed off like a tiny list of notes here to kind of read off. Like 36 million. There's no way that he turns that down. So he's definitely going back to Washington. He's not even going to be like an actual option, I'd say for sure.
I don't think he'll opt out either. If he does, it'd be like because he wants like 5 years, 120 million, and I still don't want to do that if I'm the Pacers. So he's more 5 to me. I kind of glossed over him, but Jeremy Grant, wonderful fit. If he the only like, I don't know what the hell to make of the Blazers. I don't know why he wouldn't be back. I mean, the wishful thinking person would say, "Oh, the tax apron and they might trade Dame." And like, yeah, okay, if they do all these a million things, maybe Jeremy Grant's available, but like, he won't be available. Even though to me, he'd be a great fit of that top group. Mm-hmm. But this next tier after the All-Star tier has quite a few fascinating names that actually, 1, could be available and 2 are still good fits for the Pacers. 1 name stands out to me, and 1 name has a million connections to the franchise. Would you like one of my favorite free agent targets for the Pacers this summer first, Ethan, or the guy that has so many connections to the franchise that it's painful? Pick one.
Let's do your favorite.
Okay. My favorite, if he's available, free agent target for the Pacers this summer is P.J. Washington, Charlotte's man. I don't know if he is available. I don't know what the Hornets are thinking. Their GM and coach are like shorter contracts left. Their ownership might change. They have a really high pick in this draft and are possibly going to pick a forward that would play next to or on top of PJ Washington's position. He's had a wonderful year, though. He had 16-5 for them. He's a decent enough defender. He can shoot it a little bit. Man, is he good. And he's only 24. He turns 25 before next season starts. But from a skill set perspective, from the size he offers perspective, he is like exactly what the Pacers need from an age perspective, too. That's a guy that I think the Pacers should go after if they can. Here's the problem. He's restricted free agent, right? That's why I talked about the Hornet situation. It's not as easy as PJ Washington's a great fit. Let's go get him. It's, we might have to, coerce a sign and trade or dance through restricted free agency, and the Hornets letting him get away would be immensely dumb. But if he is available, he's among my favorite free agent targets for the Pacers this summer.
Yeah, for sure. I think he fits great. He's a guy that I don't think is like awesome at like any one thing, but he's good at pretty much pretty much everything. So can kind of fit on any team. I think he fits well like next to Miles for sure. It is really hard to like know what Charlotte's going to try to do. I don't know if they're trying to compete, if they want to like keep kind of like trying to like rebuild. I don't really know. I can't really get a pulse on what that franchise is currently trying to do. So if he is there, I think he's a great fit. I know that the Pacers don't typically go for like guys that are the restricted free agents. They tried last year with Ayton, kind of like had to sit and wait for forever for the Suns to like decide if they're going to match or not. So it does potentially, waste, is it 3 days that you wait?
It's shorter now. The new CBA is
shorter now.
Yeah, last year was weird because the talk was about are the Suns going to match, but like in reality they matched in 3 minutes. But like the lead up of the 10 days of are they going to sign him or not was so funky.
Yeah, for sure. So
yep. I agree that restricted free agents not something they usually pursue. That's why this one's tricky, right? Because it makes sense for them to blow over Charlotte, make them pay him, make them do it. Their salary situation is not super simple with some expensive players, and Miles Bridges might be back too. Like, are they going to even have a ton of forward minutes available? I won't speak to that being a good decision for them or not, but potentially if he is somehow available, that's a wonderful fit. The other forward that I think I want to talk about because he played for Rick Carlisle for several years, played with Halliburton for 1.5 years. He played with Buddy Hield for 2 years. I'd have to be doing some more math. He's good at basketball. He made the playoffs last year. He won a championship with the Warriors. It's Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes, not the most appealing player ever. He's in this weird tier where he's like going to cost a lot of money because he's a solid starter. And solid starters, especially with the new CBA landscape, are going to cost you like $20 million a year. Like, I don't think people are ready for how expensive players are about to be. Like, the cap's going to jump $10 million every year. Players cost a lot of money. Either way, Harrison Barnes is good. Definitely. He just averaged 15 points a game. He can shoot it pretty well, 38% from deep his whole career. He's a fine defender. He's like PJ Washington that you just said, right? He's good at a lot of stuff, but not amazing at anything or terrible at anything. And he's a weird tier of player that, like, if you have him on your team, you're happy. Like, over 60% true shooting each of the last 3 seasons, a low mistakes kind of player. But he's also not raising your ceiling so immensely that you're, like, psyched to pay him a lot of money, if that makes sense, even though he's obviously good. So I think for what the Pacers need, a 4 who can kind of initiate a little bit and shoot it a little bit and isn't, like, insanely old. He just turned 31 in May. So if you sign him to a 3-year deal, it's not going to look awful. Like, yeah, he'd be a good fit. And he's got a lot of connections to key members of the franchise. I don't know if the Kings are actually going to let him go, if they should let him go, whatever. But he could be a good fit, and he's a good player.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit on the older side, like you said, 31. But I still kind of like Draymond. His game is going to age fine, like the next 3 or 4 seasons. I think he would fit super well. So yeah, depending on the price, what actually is the Pacers cap number this year? I don't really know where they're sitting at.
So TBD, depending on how many picks they actually make, but like somewhere between 26 and 30, basically.
Okay. So I think
Harrison Barnes.
yeah, they could definitely pay him. So yeah, great option for sure. Agreed.
It's so weird. Like, I've had this theory about Harrison Barnes' level of player for a while, where it's like, I just kind of explained it, but it's like if you get them on your team, like, they're good and you should want to sign them, but it's also like not the best use of resources, if that makes sense, unless you're already good. You know what I mean? Like, if you're already good and you're adding Harrison Barnes, you're like, yes, now we're closer to a championship. But if you're not a playoff team and you're adding Harrison Barnes, it's like, you're not going to win around because you signed Harrison Barnes. You have to already have the structure in place to need Harrison Barnes, right? And so, yeah, I think if the Pacers got him, and that would definitely make them way better, right? They desperately need somebody with his skill set and his position, but I don't think it would like push them over the hump. But that's not a reason not to get him. Like, they just desperately need 4. So I think that might be a guy you hear a lot because of the many connections he has, because he's good at a position to be in. Is probably the best, like, potentially available for, but he's just in that like Bojan Bogdanovic, just in this tier for me. There's a lot of guys like that. Like, you're really good, but not amazing wing starters. A lot of them like this. That's not a reason not to sign him. That's just like a theory in my head, but he's good. So,
yep.
And for sure. Anybody else you like in this, like, should be a good starter kind of tier of free agents?
He's not listed as a starter on Spotrac, and he's also restricted. You can maybe guess where I'm going with this, but I'm excited. Well, do you think it's Grant Williams, or do you think it's Rui Hachimura?
I was hoping you were going to Grant Williams.
I wasn't. Rui.
Whoa! I'm not as excited anymore.
Really? No? I get it.
Make the pitch. Make the pitch.
I think since going to the Lakers, I just kind of liked what I saw from him during the postseason. I thought he like showed some stuff that he didn't get to show as often in Washington. Decent on defense. I think he can like, just someone that is a decent like slasher, can like kind of like create a little bit. Can't really shoot super well yet. I'm not sure if that's ever gonna be his thing or not. I just kind of like him for his age and just potential still. Don't know if like he'll ever actually be someone that is starting on an actual championship caliber team. I don't know if the Lakers are actually going to try to bring him back. I think they would like to. I don't know if they can like afford to keep him and Reeves and then also keep building like around their stars that they still have to like try to keep pushing for that title. I kind of think between Rui and Reeves, just kind of feel like one of them's going to be there for someone to scoop in and pick up. So I'd take a look at him. But it sounds like you might not.
He's good and is young and plays a position the Pacers need. Great. Thumbs up. Check. Sign it up. Like, it's interesting because the reason the Lakers might be in the position you just described is because he was so good in the playoffs, right? Because I wouldn't have thought about paying him $15 million before that postseason. But he was
right.
He was good for them in the playoffs every game. And that's maybe why the Pacers would be excited to get him. And this is all regular season based, and I watch more Wizards than the average person, but like I've always just been like, dang, if he was 10% better at anything he does, he'd be good, but he's not. And so it's always a little frustrating where you'll have a bunch of like 5 for 13 games and he's like okay impactful on the glass. And he's like an okay 3-point shooter and he's a good defender with his size, but it's not like a great defense. He's good. Like he's good. I can't even describe like this the feeling I have about Rui Hachimura. Like he's good. If the Pacers got him, that would make sense. Maybe he becomes the best available player for them. I've always felt like if he was 10% better at any of the key skills that he has, he'd be like awesome, and he's not. But he is good. The other guy you were gonna say I think is much better, but we'll get to him in a minute.
Yeah, I do think that Rui's like play during the postseason might just kind of be like slightly making me value him.
That was it. Like he was 10% better at finishing plays. He was awesome in the postseason.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
And then on the flip side, I think Grant in the playoffs, like this season, just kind of like scares me a little bit, just because it seems like kind of down the stretch for Boston, like he just couldn't really like stay like on the court. Couldn't really like add too much like useful skills during their postseason run either. So it's kind of just Grant, I think, has had the better like career so far, has shown more. I think it's really just this postseason. I just kind of like value Rui a little bit more now.
Yeah, that is fair. I never got the Celtics not playing him, to be honest. Sure. I think that was a funny talk, but like my opinion is not reflective of everybody's, but I thought he should be playing. Like he had 45% of his threes in the postseason. Like he did good stuff. He also had like some truly embarrassing moments in the postseason and like the 2 free throw misses against Cleveland, like some high profile, like, dude, what are you doing kind of stuff. Yeah. But like, this, like we've been in group chats before. I was a Grant Williams fan in the draft in 2019, like a really big Grant Williams fan. And so he's not like amazing, but that dude can really defend. He's always in the right spots. He can shoot. He knows how to use his body. Like he does so many things that I'm a fan of. I've always been a fan of his game dating back to Tennessee. Low mistakes kind of player, not really in the way. So yeah, he also, like Rui, has a lot of stuff. He's like, dang, if you were 10% faster, if you had 10% better handle, finisher, whatever. But I feel like his IQ is way higher, and he is a better shooter. Like the true shooting percentages aren't even close. And so I am much more into the Grant Williams to the Pacers idea than Rui, but either one would be fine. They're both good players.
Yeah, and I do think Grant might be the one that's more gettable, just based on the postseason. Seems like the Lakers valued Rui more than the Celtics valued Grant. So definitely possible that the Pacers could kind of swoop in and grab him for sure. So
I usually call this third segment, air quotes, realistic targets, but basically anybody except for the first 3 names we talked about are realistic given the Pacers cap situation and what they need and the talent of these players. But there are a couple more like specialty type guys that I want to talk about. The first one being one I mentioned earlier, where if you're going to sign a guy who's only good at one side of the ball, Do you look at the shooting of it? And it just so happens that this guy is perhaps Tyrese Halliburton's best friend in the entire league. And it also just so happens that this guy used to play for the Pacers and may or may not be a very, very good three-point shooter who's hit over 40% 5 seasons in a row. George Niang, Ethan, what do you think of that idea?
I think he's a great fit. I'm actually, he was someone that I was going to bring up next because I think he would be pretty much perfect for what the Pacers are looking for just because he can shoot. So definitely just more spacers to put around Tyrese, kind of like clear the paint out for Ben to kind of like make his patented like cuts to the hoop and try to draw fouls and everything. So I think he can kind of like slot into that starting four. I think he would definitely start just based on who's like actually still on this roster. I honestly love it. I don't know what he's going to get paid. I don't think it's going to be anything super crazy. I think he's going to get a raise from what he was making before. But definitely seems like someone that the Pacers could still pay, fits really well. I think that's a great option, definitely.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question about the rest of the names we'll probably say. Like Niang, for example. If you drafted either one of Walker or Hendricks and then signed Niang, you'd start Niang over the rookie? I think so. I asked that because I think we're now at the level of player that everyone we say from now on, I would have back up the rookie. But if you disagree.
I think I would probably start Jarris Walker over him. I don't know if I'd start Taylor Hendricks over him.
Okay.
Just because, like I kind of said before, I think Walker's just a little bit more like ready for the pros. I think Hendricks is a little bit more of a project, just a little bit more raw. Doesn't quite have like the feel on offense that I think that Walker has. So I think if they draft Walker, I would lean towards starting him, like just to get him playing time, just to get him. You're drafting him to be your, power forward of the future moving forward. Hendricks, I just think is a little bit further off. So I think I would still bring Hendricks off the bench in that situation, start Walker, but I can go either way with that. It's close.
Niang could play the three. You could play both, whatever, no biggie. But yeah, I think we've now hit the tier for me. Maybe there's one more guy that I'd think about starting over a rookie, but where I would just start the rookie and then figure out the depth with these other guys. But it's close. People are going to kill me for saying you'd start Grant Williams over. Yes, I would. We'll continue though. Yeah, Niang's good. Close with Ty. That Iowa State stuff. You've seen them at many a game, chopping it up in the past. I mean, the Sixers probably want to keep him because he's good and can shoot, but he's an unrestricted free agent, so it doesn't matter what the Sixers want. It matters what George. I always want to say the S, man. I know it's George Niang. I always want to say it kills me. I always have like Jordan Nwora. I just said it correctly, but I see his last name with the N and his first name ends with an N, so it sounds like you're saying Nwora, even if you're just saying whatever. I'm venting about that. The other kind of good youngish player near the top of this list is Kenyon Martin Jr. It's a team option. I have no reason to believe that the Rockets will let him get away because they could either pick up the team option or decline it and make him a restricted free agent. But he's probably the last guy that would be in this like teetering tier of, oh, this guy's 22 and is good-ish, right? Just average 13 and 6 for Houston. And, him or Jayshawn Tate will likely be available because they both play the 4 and need playing time. But he's good. And if the Pacers could get him, that'd be good. Everybody else, I'll let you talk about Martin in a second, but everybody else kind of below that, I feel like is mostly a depth piece at the 4, if you agree.
Yeah, for sure. I do like Martin quite a bit. I think the potential and the age fits what the Pacers are definitely going for right now. I don't see him leaving Houston. I think they'll keep him for sure. So I just don't think he'll be there. Yeah,
it's tricky when these guys that in theory they could be available, but it'd be stupid if they were actually available in practice. And Jayshawn Tate is good, but the reason that I wouldn't want the reason he'd be available is the Rockets have too many 4s and he can't play. He didn't play that much for them last season. He played 31 games. He played a total of 677 minutes. That's how much Gogo was playing in his first 2 seasons with the Pacers. He's tiny. He's not like a big 4. He's not really a 4. Right. So even if he became available, if I'm the Pacers, I'm not tripping all over myself to scoop up that piece. Everybody else for sure would be a backup to either Hendricks or Walker to me. Now, again, we said this at the beginning. They need as many bodies as they can get at this position. So, they should still probably consider some of these guys, even if they don't or even if they draft a 4, and they should do that either way. Who stands out to you among the names we haven't said yet as someone that you'd be like, ooh, that would fit really well with what the Pacers do?
How do you feel about Trey Lyles?
How about an indie legend?
Exactly.
Tugging at my heartstrings, Ethan. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he can shoot. He's still pretty young. I think he fits well in in that front court with Miles. So yeah, he's someone that I would look at for sure. I could see the Kings trying to keep him. I'm not sure how much they're willing to pay him, but yeah, that was my next guy that I was going to shout out.
Yeah, he finally put it together a little bit on defense this year, and I think that matters a great deal for the Pacers, as we talked about earlier. You know, I used to think he'd just kind of be a decent-ish shooter. He shot okay this year, 36%, but having a little bit more defensive chops last year, like he won them some games, like that was significant. He got his 3-point attempt rate way up, stretching it out a bit. True 60.7% true shooting. Like that's a solid role player, right? Even if he's only playing 20 minutes off the bench, like you can be confident those minutes will go fine. Yeah, I agree. I mean, of course I'm going to love the indie kids, but he was good for Sacramento last year and is unrestricted. So that's a good one. The guy right below him, the top 11. I mean, Spotrac ranks them well, but Jalen McDaniels, I like both McDaniels. Obviously, Jaden is much, much, much better and is not even available this offseason. But Jalen McDaniels, there was a rumor from, I believe, Michael Scotto that the Pacers had interest in him prior to the trade deadline last season from Charlotte. He's not like doing anything flashy on offense. He's not a good shooter. He's not much of a play finisher, but that dude can defend and move around really well, and he's 6'9". That seems like a good depth piece for the Pacers to me.
Yeah, and his shooting seems like it's maybe getting better too. I know since he got to Philly, he shot, I believe, 40% from three. So definitely a small, like not a very big desample size for sure, but showed like he was maybe making some strides there. Definitely.
Oh wow, yeah.
So if he keeps moving in that direction, I actually like him quite a bit too. Agreed.
Yeah. After him and Lyles, who are both good in 27, 25, the list is a lot of like unsexy vets. I don't know if you have a better word to describe any of this tier. Nope. Where if the Pacers I'll read you the names, listener. If the Pacers got any of these guys, you'd understand why they play the 4 and they need 4s, but none of them are like awesome. This will really help the Pacers long term, or like really tell us a lot about how 4s fit with their current team. It's Jeff Green, Danilo Gallinari, JaMychal Green, Dario Saric, Keita Bates-Diop, Derek Jones Jr., Rudy Gay, Wenyen Gabriel, Justice Winslow. Like a lot of like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but no one awesome. Like Green, I thought made sense to them a few years ago when they ended up signing Justin Holiday, and that worked out great for them. That was the right choice. But now I don't think it makes as much sense because he's going to be 33 when next season starts. Like there's just not a lot of like everybody else below that is like not that good. And we're at the point now where it's like, I'd rather just retain O'Shea Brissett, who they know fits in their system and is good. So none of those guys, I think, are so much better than Brissett to the point that you'd rather bring them in than the guy that knows your system and team really well.
Yeah, the one guy I kind of thought about was JaMychal Green. I think he would be like an okay, just like kind of stopgap, like depth piece.
Yeah, he is
a little bit
is good.
Yeah. I think just guys like Dario Saric, just the defense scares me too much with him. I would not really take a second look at him, I don't think. Derek Jones Jr. has shown some stuff now and then, like shown some flashes. I could maybe see him turning down his player option. His contract isn't massive. Maybe like he thinks he's – yeah, I'd probably take that shot too. So he's someone that I kind of thought about too. I think he's just shown some like useful skills, still kind of young. And then just randomly, I noticed that Justice Winslow is only 27 years old. I would have guessed by now he was like 33 or something. For some reason, it feels like he's been playing forever. And is someone that I thought would be a lot better by now. So yeah, this tier, it gets pretty dire here for sure. No one that I would take a super hard look at, but there are some decent depth pieces if you just want to add like a third power forward. Yeah.
I personally really like Derek Jones Jr. I know that you were a part of the chattings when I was throwing him into Oladipo trades when he was with the Heat, and everybody was like, "What are you talking about, Derek Jones Jr.?" I was like, "I think he's good." I was wrong. He's not as good as I thought he would be, but I've always been at least a decent fan of what he can do. A good depth piece kind of guy. But yeah, you nailed it. We're at the depth piece point where it's like, and the other thing is too, like we talk about Brissett, like I'd rather just bring back the guy that knows your team and your system at this point. And like none of these guys now what the names we're saying, Wara would play over them anyway as backup or whatever the role is available. So then it's like, okay, you're definitely signing them for depth. And if you're doing so, you are limited to signing players who would agree to a situation where they're not playing, right? They'd have to know that in negotiating. They're not dumb. So now it's even harder. Like if you go to whoever, Derek Jones Jr. or Justice Winslow, who are trying to find one more situation to play so they can make one more contract. It's like, hey, if you sign with us, you're not playing. They're like, no, I don't want that. So this is where it gets a lot harder to really get these negotiations rolling, unless you can obviously offer minutes to these guys. So this is where I'm kind of like, they've got Wara already. Just look to retain your own guys if this is the best you can do. But obviously they need depth at these spots. If they got any of these guys, it would make sense still.
Yeah. Yeah, really kind of looking at the list, once you get kind of past Derek Jones Jr. and besides O'Shea, the only other guy I really have.
Can I guess?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it Baisley?
It is Baisley.
Yes. Yes.
And he's someone that I don't know if the Suns are really like super invested in, and they're going to be doing a lot this summer to kind of try to rebuild that roster around Booker and KD. So I don't know if he'll be back in Phoenix. I think he could be someone that the Pacers could kind of snag. I think I liked him more when he first got drafted, just because it seemed like the potential was a little bit higher than where he's currently kind of wound up, but he's still only 23. He can at least like get some boards, be helpful in that aspect. So if Phoenix doesn't seem like they're interested in matching him and he isn't asking for like a ton of money, he is probably my last guy on this list that I would consider. Yeah,
I agree that I'd take, like, he's a good second draft kind of candidate. Didn't really squeeze in perfectly with OKC, barely even played with the Suns. Like, I forget he's on the Suns. So, yeah, it could be available. If you can get him on a minimum, go for it. Make him your third four and see if it works out. He's 6'8" and can jump out of the gym. Like, you could do worse than that. Everybody else, I'm kind of like, whatever. We have to say his name to finish this discussion. James Johnson. I don't think they need both James Johnson and George Hill. And I have said why I would lean George Hill as the Pacers. But if they pick James Johnson over George Hill, that's totally fine. Vets are great. James Johnson was a great vet. He shouldn't play a single minute if he's on the team, but he still gave them value.
For sure. He's cool. I'd be totally fine with him coming back. But yeah, you're right. Like, you're not signing him to actually play. Yeah. But would be totally fine with it. I liked him when he was here. Seems like the team, all liked him too, even to the point where when they did they cut him or?
Yes, they had to for the trade. Yeah.
But then still brought him back. So like obviously is well liked by the team. So wouldn't be surprised if he's back just in that exact same role. He's never going to play. He's not actually going to be useful in that aspect, but brings other things to the table that, a young team that's growing and like trying to figure out how to like maybe someday contend could definitely still, bring in, and he could have like a lot of value in other ways for sure.
Yeah, I had to bring him up just because he's on the team last year. I feel like you got to include them in the discussions. But I mean, it's basically like if George Hill won't take your money, sign James Johnson. Right. Whatever. So we'll see what they're hoping to do with the vets. That's everybody I think worth mentioning. If you think I missed somebody, tweet at Ethan, not me. I don't care about your complaints. Just kidding. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. Easton. Ethan is there at Krieger Sports. Ethan, I should have let you do that. Where can people follow you and your musings on pro basketball, the Pacers, etc.?
Yeah, at Krieger Sports on Twitter.
I ruined it.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm really not writing too much anymore. I've kind of been thinking about it. So right now it's just, hot takes and bad memes and stuff like that. But if that sounds fun to you, I am, each draft, like the last few years, I've been kind of like watching tape more and more of like the top 30 or 40 guys. So I've been posting some draft thoughts on there. So if you want to see what I think about some possible Pacers draft picks at 7 or even later in the first round, I'll probably be posting some of that in like the next week or so.
Ethan was the first guy on Pacers Twitter who echoed my Brandon Miller thoughts, and that got you some major brownie points, baby. We're talking tomorrow's show, since we're talking about the draft fittingly, Anthony Black time. I've said this a lot. Spoiler, I am extremely high on the Anthony Black. Maybe not for the Pacers, but as a player, very high on him. So that'll be fun. Next Monday, we'll talk free agency at the center spot, and then it's all draft the rest of the week, obviously, with the lead up to the big day next Thursday. Thank you guys a ton for listening. We'll see you soon.